And it is a very auspicious day. It was exactly 1 year ago where Hamas launched thousands of terrorists, thousands of rockets, killing 1,200, taking 250 hostage, and leading to the conflict we've seen over the past year. It's hard to imagine that a resolution is on the near horizon. As was mentioned, I don't think I'd call it a widening conflict in the region. Hezbollah started firing rockets at Israel on October 8th. The Houthis from Yemen, Iran has launched 2 strikes in April and on October 1st. It's certainly escalating, and it's hard to imagine that it'll be resolved within the next 4 weeks. But the United States, as you just had Vice President Harris said very clearly, the United States stands united with Israel, the people of Israel, and their existential battle against the Iran and its proxies. And we need to make sure that Israel defeats Hamas, defeats Hezbollah, and that ultimately we can get onto that road for peace, where all the people in the region can give their children the future they deserve.
Well, with all of that said here, you're attending and speaking at an event in Highland Park today, honoring those murdered and taken hostage on October 7th. I wonder if we have moved on from the idea of an agreement that would secure the release of the rest of the living hostages. As we learned today, another Israeli hostage has been confirmed dead. We talk so much about the two-front conflict that's happening, the potential for a ceasefire. We don't talk enough, Congressman, about the hostages who are still being held.
No, you're right. And I hadn't heard about the confirmation of another hostage killed. There's 101 hostages in Gaza, people who were taken from Israel on October 7th. We know that many of those are no longer living. It doesn't change the fact that until they are returned, their bodies are returned, the families can't get closure, can't bury their loved ones and observe the mourning period that they all rightly should be able to observe. And we know that some, hopefully many, are still living. The goal is to get them home as quickly as possible. I've worn this yellow ribbon now for 367 days, hoping to bring the hostages home, hoping for a pathway. It rests with Yahya Sinwar. He has the ability to release the hostages, to bring this war to an end in Gaza, to free the people of Gaza, to rebuild and renew their lives and their communities, but renew it in a way free from the terrorist infrastructure that Hamas has built and the terrorist threats against Israel.
Well, Congressman, as I mentioned, you're a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. What will be the U.S. commitment militarily here to help defend Israel if this continues to escalate? We know that Israel is working on a response to Iran right now, and we've surged an enormous number of military equipment, thousands of troops to the Middle East. What are we preparing for?
Well, I think we have to be prepared to confront Iran. Iran launched almost 200 ballistic missiles at Israel a week ago tomorrow. It was an escalation unlike anything we've seen in the region before. Thankfully, with U.S. support and others, Israel was able to thwart the attack, second time in a year, in less than a year. And the response against Iran, as President Biden said, it needs to be proportionate. 180 ballistic missiles is not a small strike. It's a major strike. It targeted all 10 million people living in Israel. Israel needs to restore its deterrence, as it's done with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And we need to get to a place where the regime understands that they don't have a free hand. They continue to support terrorism in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen. They're a disruptive influence. Iran is a disruptive influence to the region, to the interests of peace in the region, as well as the interests of the United States. So I expect in Congress, as well as the administration, stands by Israel, our most important ally in the region, but also stands with our other allies in confronting the existential threat that Iran poses.
You know what's interesting to me, Congressman, is that the analysis always leads us to the point where we hear that nobody wants to go to war. Israel is not looking to go to war with Iran, and Iran is not looking to go to war with Israel. Everyone's trying to save face. And when this tit-for-tat continues, they feel no option but to respond. And with that said, as Israel prepares to respond to Iran now once again, if you see any diplomatic off-ramps or if this really is only a military solution.
Well, at the end of the day, there has to be a diplomatic solution. It has to be Iran um, reversing course. They are moving towards a nuclear weapon. The policy of the United States, the right and correct policy of the United States is that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. That is a policy shared by not just Israel, but our allies in the region, our Arab allies in the region. And so it'd be far better to get to a diplomatic solution without having to take other measures for Iran to back away, to get back in compliance with an agreement that said they wouldn't enrich uranium to highly enriched near weapons grade levels, that they would allow inspectors in to ensure that their nuclear program is a civilian nuclear program and not a military program. There's every reason to believe that it is a military program, and the United States, working with our allies, has to be prepared to do everything necessary to ensure that Iran can never have that nuclear weapon they so desire.
Congressman Schneider, I started our conversation by asking you if you thought this might resolve by the election. I don't think you do, and I don't think anyone does at this point. So in our remaining minute here, I wish we had more time, but in our minute left, will the result of the election here in the United States help to determine the outcome of what's happening in the Middle East?
Well, thanks. I'm happy to come back and talk more about this. I think the results of the election will have a significant impact. President Biden, to his credit, has stood by Israel longer than any previous U.S. president in a time of war. He's the only president to have visited Israel during a time of war. It's imperative that the United States remains committed to Israel's right to defend itself, to secure its borders, protect its citizens, and as we talked about at the beginning, to rescue the hostages. We need to make sure that the United States continues to lead on a global stage, that we stay engaged with our allies, that we strengthen the alliances like NATO, like other alliances, build on the Abraham Accords,